I just tell people now, and especially because I teach at the Fire Academy by my house, that this job is not aesthetic based. It's performance based. Being able to perform at a high level doesn't necessarily matter what you look like. I mean, I've seen dudes who you would look like are like not, they're just unassuming, maybe not a lot of muscle mass, not big guys, but they can do work and gear and make a bottle last forever, and they can just go and go and go and stack the suffering and not be phased. Versus you have a guy who looks like he could be on the cover of a fitness model magazine, and he's only good for 10 minutes.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Tailboard Misfits podcast. Today, we have the honor and privilege with talking with Mr. Logan Broberg. Logan is a 10-year guy, 9 years career, currently a driver, engineer, and step-up officer at the Kissimmee Fire Department in Florida. He's also been to the Georgia Smoke Divers, the Georgia Flames program. He's a student of the game and obviously has one of the most gnarly mustaches that I have seen in the fire service. So without further ado, Logan, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Thank you. It's honestly an honor and privilege for me, man, to be on here. So,
well, I've listened to a couple of the other podcasts you've been in, and the passion you have speaks for itself. And that's kind of what we're all about, is just passionate firemen, being able to add value to the fire service through shared experiences, through some good conversation like we're about to have. So something that we do know about you that you definitely aren't shy about is the fact that you are huge into physical fitness and being what I would consider combat ready for the job. So one of the questions that I have is, have you always been big into the fitness aspect before the fire service?
Yeah, so I pretty much played sports my whole life. I played like rec league football my whole life. And then when I hit high school, nobody told me that I was going to be a little, 110, 120 pound runt. So I didn't make the football team. And, after like a week or two of going home and having to do a bunch of chores and sitting around the house, I got tired of that. So a couple of my buddies, they told me they were getting into wrestling. And so I showed up one day in the wrestling room and, got grinded on for 3+ hours and then just fell in love with it, man. So I did that for all through high school, basically my freshman year all the way to my senior year. And, I was never physically talented or gifted, and, I wasn't fast, I wasn't strong, but something my parents had kind of always instilled in me was just work ethic, man. And it really paid off for me in wrestling. That's when I really started to see that if you worked hard, that the hard work would pay off. So like my freshman year, I didn't even make the varsity, lineup for wrestling. You had to wrestle off for your spot, which was also something I really liked because there was no favoritism. The coach could love you all he wanted, but if you didn't earn your way on that varsity spot, then you weren't the starting guy for that week. And we would do wrestle offs every week. So you pretty much, it's kind of like that warrior culture, man. You would battle off for your spot. And if it wasn't your week, then, coach would say, well, hey, keep training, come back next week, and maybe, you'll get it done. So like I said, my freshman year, I was on the JV team, had a losing record, and got tired of, getting smashed in front of my whole family and friends on the mat. And so, just took a long, hard look at myself, asked my coach, like, hey, what can I do to get better? And he told me, well, most kids in Florida, they don't wrestle year round. So he said during the off season, which is usually like the summertime into, the fall, he said, go to different, seminars that you can learn from different people that wrestle at different levels, go wrestle in different wrestling rooms where other schools, host these extra practices and just wrestle all year round. And that's what I did. So that sophomore year, I came back, made the varsity lineup and had, like a middle of the road record, won some, lost some. And then my junior and senior year, I came back as a, captain of the team, started kind of learning about leadership and leading by example. And then my senior year, I broke the single season takedown record for, my school. And then a couple of my buddies went to states. I didn't quite make it that far. That was my goal, but, help them learn how to be a good teammate and a good training partner, because if, you had shitty training partners, it didn't matter how good or physically talented you were. They weren't able to push you. So I did that. And then, my whole life I wanted to be a cop because my dad that's what he did for his career, and always hearing his stories. And, it's a fun job, blue collar, something different every day. But he didn't want me to do that. So I did a ride along with his buddy who was a fireman. And that's kind of when I fell in love with it. I did the ride along, saw what they did every day. He showed me all the tools. And, the thing that stuck out to me was just that camaraderie. So same thing. I asked him, like, hey, how do I be a fireman? He told me the steps down here in Florida. You have to go through EMT school, and then you go to fire school and you're considered eligible to be hired, and you have to put yourself through school. But I found out about an apprenticeship up in Central Florida, which I grew up in South Florida. So I did the apprenticeship where I got to live at a different fire station and went through fire school at the same time. And that pretty much solidified my fate. Like, I definitely knew I wanted to do that. I got to see, how they operated. They were super cool. Kind of took me under their wing and, saw them go to a couple fires and, run some medical calls. But going back to your question about fitness, I'd always been pretty fit, but not like fireground fit, I would consider, or, performance-based fit. It was more like once I graduated high school, I kind of wanted to get bigger because I was always pretty small. I graduated at 132 pounds. So it's more like the bodybuilding type workouts. And, I knew to be a fireman, you had to be in shape. So I always worked out, but I wouldn't say it was like the most beneficial training. It was more just like your bro splits. Like me and my buddy Jake would go to the gym and, do your normal bodybuilding style workouts, which there's a time and a place for that, obviously. And then I was able to go through fire school. Really didn't have too many issues, but they honestly didn't really push us too hard there. We'd PT for 30 minutes to an hour, and it was just simple stuff. And I was fit enough to, get on the job and pass the physical test for Kissimmee and give me my first shot. But, my first wake up call was when I went through a 40-hour truck class, and they offer it here in Central Florida. And it's basically just 40 hours straight of nothing but truck work. And you learn how to, do good searches, VES, throw ladders efficiently, vertical vent. But, their big thing was that when a battalion chief calls like the truck up to the scene, or district chief, whoever's IC, like the truck company or, your specialized unit should be the guys that get it done. So they held the class to a very high standard. We did air consumption drills every day, and every scenario or every drill you did, it was just physically taxing. So that was like my first wake up call, because me and my buddy Phil went through, and he was training in gear a bunch, but every time he'd ask me to train, I'm like, oh no, man, I'm just going to go to the weight room and do some buys and tries and, do some bench press. And if you looked at me, you'd be like, oh man, Broberg's in good shape. Like, he should be able to put in work. And then if you see me in that class, it was like not what you would expect. And I just tell people now, and especially because I teach at the Fire Academy by my house, that this job is not aesthetic based, it's performance based. Being able to perform at a high level doesn't necessarily matter what you look like. I mean, I've seen dudes who you would look like are like not, they're just unassuming, maybe not a lot of muscle mass, not big guys, but they can do work in gear and make a bottle last forever, and they can just go and go and go and stack the suffering and not be phased. Versus you have a guy who looks like he could be on the cover of a, fitness model magazine, and he's only good for 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I think I heard someone say something along the lines of like what good are the muscles or something like that if you can't like work for more than 10 minutes at a time. It's like if all you are is in shape, you're just an in shape person in bunker gear, right? And it goes both ways. Like, if all you do is skill stuff and you're not in shape, then all you are someone who knows how to do a bunch of skills. Something that I've always related to, and you kind of alluded to it. Although I think it's cool you guys wrestle. We don't wrestle here in Texas, at least not around where I'm from. So it was always football and baseball for me. But the camaraderie aspect of it always drove me to the fire service. Like, you always hear about it, right? Even if you don't know anyone in the fire service, that's kind of like the word brotherhood is centered around the fire service. And that was something that I was always, driven to. And along the lines of fitness, like I relate 100%. Like I've always been a bigger guy, if you will, in a sense of I've always been chubby. And I played offensive line in football. And then through that, they always encourage you to get bigger for some reason. And I did powerlifting. So I was, a pretty strong guy. And then for me personally, like after high school, just because I probably set myself up for failure with bad habits, bad eating habits and stuff, I fell off. And, honestly, an injury to myself really opened my eyes to everything at the first department that I was at. And what's funny is I'm doing it right now. I saw it was the first time I'd ever seen the whole Fit to Fight Fire page. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago now. And my buddy was like, hey, we're going to do this. It was like 100 burpees a day. So we started doing it. And man, I don't know, towards the end of the month, my shoulder started like giving me some pains that I'd never felt before. And I ended up getting tendonitis really bad in my arm. And up until then, much like you said, it was all bro workouts, like squat, bench, and deadlift. Let's do the big three every single day we go to the gym. And naturally, I was like, well, I have to do something. So I started implementing some more HIIT stuff. And that injury quite literally set me down a path to lose like 65 pounds in total, and like
Wow,
I've
that's
just
awesome,
been
bro.
on this. Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of myself. That's why I said yeah, because my weight and realistically fitness level is something that I won't say I've always struggled with, but I've always been insecure of. And just being around the right group of people to get my mindset, and then seeing a lot of these fitness pages on Facebook and Instagram that really make fitness easy, if that makes sense. Not the work, but doing the stuff. Like I don't have to think about it. That's a big thing for me. I have to know what I'm doing before I do it. Otherwise, I'm going to go in and mess around for 10 minutes and say that's good. So, I think the camaraderie and having the brotherhood to push each other with the fitness side of things and really getting into the functional fitness stuff is huge. Because myself, I'm not built like a Greek god. I am still what I would consider chubby, but I also like to think that I hold my own on the fire ground and can work. And I think a lot of that is attested to just the HIIT workouts and a lot of the stuff in the Uncommon Fireman page, like all those workouts. I do those often, and just being able to push through those. So I might not look like I can do it. Like, so I totally understand what you're saying, but the work, speaks for itself. So the fitness side and in the gear, I've always been curious of that. I've done a few in gear workouts, and like I'm always like, it's like a what I don't know type of thing. When you're doing these workouts, are you wearing your structural boots, or are you in tennis shoes, or how do you do those? Or is it like some of them you're in your boots, some of them in your tennis shoes, or what?
Yeah, so it just depends on the workout. So any workout that I do in gear that involves running, I wear tennis shoes just because to me the risk versus reward is not worth it. Like if there's a lot of running. So because I've had foot issues, like I've had plantar fasciitis and all that, and it's just not worth like hurting your knees and your feet when you could just wear some tennis shoes. And but if it's just like a circuit that's like fire ground based around the station or in the bay, I wear everything. If that makes sense.
Okay. No, yeah, I get that. Is your crew like? Have they bought in to what you do daily as far as the in gear workouts and realistically just fitness in general?
Yeah, so I've been pretty lucky. My crew is pretty young, and my lieutenant, he just got promoted from driver to lieutenant, and we came up together. He came on like a year and a half after me, and we had the same mindset. Like we went to conferences together, took a bunch of classes, and he's into training. He teaches, VMR and teaches with the fools just like I do. And as far as training goes and working out, like it's pretty easy because he's bought in, and it's pretty hard for people to say like, oh, I don't want to do it when the lieutenant's doing it,
Right. Yeah.
But I'm like I said, I have a high standard for myself, but I'm tolerant of others. So my thing is just getting them out there. That's like the big question I always get from people, because even people in my department have asked me, because I've kind of gone to some of the crews that were considered maybe like not as motivated. And next thing you know, like within a few weeks of me being assigned out there, like they're out there with me. And my biggest thing is one, don't be abrasive, because I used to be that way and it just doesn't work. And if you really think about it, I mean, you should really kind of treat people how you'd want to be treated. So, I wouldn't want somebody to tell me like, oh, just because I don't work out and train that like I'm a piece of garbage, basically. Even though it does get frustrating sometimes when you are into the job and that's how you feel, it's just not the right approach. So what I do is I kind of just like make deals with them. Like, hey, why don't you just come out with me for 10 minutes? I'm doing a gear workout, but you can just be in PT clothes and just come out for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, dude, you can go inside. And what usually always happens is they just stay for the whole time. We end up, hanging out in the bay afterwards. We're cooling off, we're bullshitting, busting each other's balls. And I think that's what really builds the crew camaraderie, man, is when you're suffering together, it's going to kind of bond you. And the other thing coming from like I would say, I guess like a company officer or even like a leadership aspect is when you are training with your crew and you're pushing them to their limits, you start to notice how they act when they're being stressed and when they're tired, and they're like what I call like a nonverbal cues. And I think it's huge because if you're in a scene or a situation, you start recognizing this, you'd be like, hey man, you're at your limit. Like, I know you're going to say you're going to go till you die, but like, we need to go out and get another bottle and reevaluate what's going on. Or like, hey, we're going to have to go to rehab because the heat index is 100+ degrees right now in Florida. And we've been working for over an hour. Like, there's no shame, man. Let's go get some water, get a new bottle. We'll come back and finish this overhaul or whatever assignment it is. Because let's face it, we're all type A personalities, right? We're not going to say, most people are not going to say they need a break or they're done, or even like how people breathe. So like, if you're in a really critical incident and you notice somebody's breathing faster than they need to be, like, hey man, slow your breathing down. And it's not foreign to you as that leader or that officer because you've already seen how they act when they're tired. It's kind of like stress inoculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing how they act. And that way it's not a surprise to you when you start recognizing these things.
Yeah, that's huge. I've actually never thought of that before. That's a good point. I love the thought of shared suffering. I like to have workout partners. If I'm going to try to do something difficult, I always try to bring people on the journey, selfishly for me, because I don't remember exactly what I was listening to. Or no, I was reading a book. Jump Seat Leadership by Joshua Chase. He says in that book, and I highlighted it, he said, there's a quitter in all of us, and it's your job to keep him quiet. And for me, that rang true. That rang true. I'm like, if I'm by myself, I unless I'm determined, when things get tough, I do have a tendency to quit. I could give a personal example. Last year we did 75 hard, me and one of my buddies did. And multiple times I would just look at him like, hey, if you quit, I'm quit. It was a funny thing, but realistically it helped to have him there. And it helped to have me there because there were several times where he was like, absolutely not. Like, we've made it this far, we're not going back. And, I would do the same for him. So he was on my crew at the time, and that helped a lot. So you kind of answered the next question I had for myself. It was just like, how do we start, especially when we're not, an informal leader, if you will, a driver, engineer, tailboard, how can we be the change agent within our crew to get out in the bay or the gym to start working out? And correct me if I'm wrong, it just sounds about like leading by example and encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I think leadership is very simple and like being a good leader, but it's not easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, first, if you want to lead people, you got to be able to lead yourself, right? Because if somebody doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter how many bugles you have or how much rank you have or how much time you have on the job. Like, they may do what you tell them to do, but they're not going to go that extra mile for you. And I've seen it personally. Like, I've had officers where maybe they weren't my favorite and I would just do what they asked and that's it, right? Versus when you have an officer that he sticks up for you, he's leading by example, he's somebody that you want to emulate. It's almost like that father thing where you don't want to let him down. So you're going above and beyond of what you normally do because you don't want to disappoint him, right? You're like, oh man, oh shit, LT's kind of, disappointed in me because whatever the case was, like,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I always tell people. You got to start with leading yourself and then try to get just one other person on your crew to buy in. That's kind of where I come up with like that 10-minute deal. And eventually what ends up happening is people get curious and they don't want to be left out. And so they all join. And it's kind of like a peer pressure thing, right? And I think the best way to do it too, if you can, especially if you're with like a bunch of younger guys, is create like an environment of competition.
Yeah. Like you
or
said, we're
or
all
meet
alpha males.
exactly, or meet them at their level. So like I had a dude who was on my crew, and I had just gotten promoted to driver, and he was an in shape dude. He was a smaller guy, so like calisthenics beast, you know. And he told me straight up, he's like, dude, I'll never work out in gear. Like, I don't care how much you do or say, like, I'm not doing it. And but he was the type of guy that was competitive, and he liked to talk a lot of smack. So I kind of met
Mm-hmm.
him where he was. I'm like, you know what, dude, you're so good at body weight stuff. I'll tell you what, let's go out. We had a pull up bar outside our bay, like so we could. It was kind of after COVID, so we were able to do like outside workouts. So we had a pull up bar and a dip bar out there. I'm like, I'll tell you what, dude, I'm 190 pounds. You're 140, 150. If I can crank out more pull ups than you got to do a gear workout on me. And so we did it, and he actually beat me by 2 pull ups, but he had never been challenged like that before, I think, and he had respect for me because I wasn't afraid to like put myself out there. And so after he beat me by only 2 pull ups, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna start training in gear. So the next shift, I can't remember exactly when it was. It might have been that day or the next shift. We did a gear workout together, and it was just a coat and pants workout. But we had everything but our air pack because I kind of just wanted to like see where he was at. Or no, I'm sorry, it was a full gear on air workout. And when we were doing the circuit, it was just like tire drags, tire hits. We have stairs at our station, so we're climbing stairs. But it was pretty hot out. So after about 20 minutes, his vibrator goes off, and he was breathing so fast that when the vibrator was going off, it wasn't giving him, the air that he was demanding. I don't know if you ever had that happen before, but if you're breathing like really, really hard and your vibrator's going off, it's kind of like a give and take. You kind of almost feel like you're not getting enough air. Well, then he ripped his mask off, and he still had a ton of air because the vibrator just started. And we have the new packs where they go off at like the vibrator goes off at like 1800 psi on our packs. So
right.
a shit ton of air. So I just kind of like I left him alone for 10 minutes, let him dress down, and I just told him straight up, I'm like, look, man, this is why I train in gear. Because I said, if me and you were making a push and we're trying to get after it, or we're trying to make a grab, and your vibrator goes off and you rip your mask off, like we got a lot of issues then, because now you're going to be a victim. And it was like his wake up call. So, dude, from that point on, after that, dude, it was like every shift, like, hey, man, it wasn't if we were getting in gear and working out, it was when. And eventually, the whole crew was with us. It'd be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. We just finished dinner, and Raph would be like, all right, let's go pull the sled out and drive the sled around the station as a crew, full gear on air.
That's awesome.
I don't know what better testimony than that is right there. I literally had a dude tell me like, oh, I'm never going to work out in gear, to now he was always wanting to get in gear.
Right. I think that's like the whole crawl, walk, run method, right? You got him to get out there, and then, it went straight through it. So another question that I had was just like, how do you have because I know some people probably struggle with this. And for me at my fire department, I know I don't want to just seem like I'm beating a dead horse or anything, but we're a busy fire department. And so on top of running to calls, we also have, administrative duties we have to do, just stuff that we have to take care of. And prioritizing training and working out, it can be a task. I mean, I could tell you that especially during the 75 hard that we were doing, there were times at midnight I was downstairs working out. Have you developed like a structured plan? And I know it's probably more particular to the time of day for your department, to be able to prioritize the fireground task training as well as the physical fitness training.
Yeah, so typically, it's like any department. We show up in the morning, we do our truck checks. My officer, he does like a Zoom meeting to see what's going on for the day, what we have assigned. And if we don't have any like formal, fire training assigned to us that we have to go do, because we have our own training center, sometimes we get to go down there and do training. It's really up to the crew or the lieutenant. So I kind of just ask him like what he wants to do for the day, if he wants to do more of like a fire type training or like do a workout, and we kind of just decide from there. It also depends on our crew. Like we've had a big shakeup on our shift, so we got some newer guys that we got to really prioritize the training. But what I'm big on is getting reps. So like the other day, we did a a training, right? That pretty much was like both. It was a training and a workout, but it was to really stress like a basic skill. So in our department, we use a pickoff strap to package a down fireman. We have them on all our rip bags, and then some of the guys carry them personally. So I told my lieutenant, I'm like, hey man, let's just like do it round robin style. We'll have one guy lay 50 feet down the bay. We'll have a team of two with the rip bag go down, silence his pass, package him, and drag him back 50 feet. And then whoever's not doing the packaging or is the victim is doing some sort of like physical exercise just to keep their heart rate up. And after about 3 or 4 or 5 rounds of that, I mean, you're pretty smoked and you're dragging your buddies. So just stuff like that, or even, I mean, dude, honestly, even going out and throwing ladders in the middle of summer, that's a workout in itself. It doesn't always necessarily have to be like a workout. I think if you're in your gear and you're doing fire training, that should suffice for the day as well. Or depending on your goals, you know, you may just have to show up in the morning before shift, get your workout done so that you know it's done for the day. Because if you're at a busy station, you know, like, hey, at least I got my workout in. And then whatever else is like extra credit. Like if I get interrupted, I don't care. And that's what I've done for the longest time too. I'm not really a big morning person. I'll be the first person to admit that. But I did like showing up in the morning and getting my workout done. And then it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about getting interrupted. Like I got that done for the day. And then I would still do extra stuff with my crew, or we would do training. And if we got interrupted, it is what it is. And then another question I get, you know, people are always like, well, what happens if you get a call? And my biggest thing is like, well, what happens if you run multiple fires in a shift or multiple extrications? I mean, my lieutenant, my old lieutenant, he switched shifts, but he was newly promoted as well. He got mandatory, right? So he worked his first 24. Nothing crazy happened, you know, just for normal, you know, medicals, and we're a busy station, so we still got our shit punched in. But then got mandoed for the back 24, and in that second 24-hour shift, he ran 3 working structure fires. So he ran one with the county, he ran an arson fire like in the mid-afternoon, and then went back to that same arson fire that night because somebody set it back on fire. So we're talking, you know, 3 structure fires in really a 24-hour period, but he was also on the back half of a 48. So it's like we don't get to decide when these calls come in. And if anything, if you're training to a certain level, you really should be able to recover within 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And I'm saying like go out do a heavy workout to where, you know, you're completely exhausted and you're not able to recover. I mean, people have different fitness levels, but you should be able to get to a fitness level to where you're able to recover fast. And that's always been instilled to me by my mentors, because like I said, I wasn't always like that. And I had the same question, and I just changed my mindset, and, you know, things change. And that's going to bring me to my next point is I'm really big, man, on having a tribe, dude. Like if you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, the chances of you also being a millionaire are like significantly high, right? If you surround yourself with five people who are unmotivated, hate their life, and, you know, don't want to do anything, chances are that's how you're going to be. So like I've been very lucky, man. None of this stuff I'm talking about is something that I've came up with. It's been something that's been passed down to me. And I've been extremely lucky, dude, that I've been surrounded by very high level elite individuals. Like, you know, some people will tell me like, hey man, you're a beast and all this shit. And it's like, dude, I wish you would like train with some of my friends, because they run circles around me. And I just want to give a shout out to my one buddy, Matt McGee. He's a lieutenant for Orlando now. He's one of the ones who really is like instilled these values into me. And, you know, he when I was training for Florida Smoke Diver, he'd make me show up with him every morning, man, 5 a.m. before shift. And we would do these grinders, you know, hour plus gear workouts. Like he would take my soul, dude. And, you know, he just really has showed me the way, and I can't give him enough praise, because I definitely would not be the fireman I am without him, you know, being there for me. So that's the other thing too, man. And it's kind of hard for some people to break that mold. But if you feel like you're not reaching your goals, like maybe you need to change who you surround yourself with, man. Because like you said, when you and your buddy were doing that 75 hard, it makes it a lot harder to quit when you got somebody holding you accountable. So like, dude, I get text messages all the time from my buddies, like different workouts they're doing, like, you know, Marcos Orozco and all these different guys, a bunch of guys that, you know, I'm really good friends with that I met through Smoke Diver over the years. Like dude, they're always holding me accountable. My one buddy Brant, dude, he hit me up. He was in Orlando for the day, and he's like, "Oh, what are you up to, man?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on shift." He's like, "All right, I'm swinging by in like an hour," and then we did a workout together. Like, I was joking with him. I was like, "Damn, dude, you come to do a little checkup on me and test me out, or what, man?" And,
Making sure you're staying the course.
yeah, making sure I'm staying ready, dude. You know, so it's honestly, dude, I'm blessed. Like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without the great people that I had that surrounded me, man.
Yeah. I do want to circle back. Like a point that you made is, working out. What if you catch a call? And when you do work for departments that run calls and they're busy, like I've experienced both. I've worked for a department that we ran 2,500 calls a year, and I've now worked for a department where we respond anywhere from 22 to 25,000 calls a year. So I do get it. I have gotten to experience both. And what I could say is the thing that people don't take into account is that at some level you do get that adrenaline. And especially when the tones drop, when we're talking about a structure fire, I can count on, both my hands, but several accounts where in the middle of a pretty good workout and catch a fire and then realistically have no issues responding to that fire. Now, would I have been able to do that if I wasn't, training the way that we had been training? I don't know. Maybe not. But that's the importance of it. And then the other part is like you said, showing up to work early. I know, especially for me, when I have personal goals that I'm trying to obtain, I try to do those outside of work. And if that requires me showing up to work early, that's what I do. This past summer, we were training for a half marathon, and to get my running in, I know it's probably going to be impossible to run, 5 or 6 miles in the middle of the day on shift. So I'd show up early and get those runs in. And so I wanted people to re-hear that because it's huge. Like there's an excuse maker in all of us, at least in me for sure. And I've had to find ways around that, and showing up early has done that. I love that part of it. And then the tribe, man. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll wait.
Just to piggyback on what you said, like what's been instilled to me too is if it's important to you, you will make time, right? Like how many people make time to watch Netflix every day or do stuff that's maybe not so productive, like get on social media and scroll mindlessly for hours, right?
Right.
So that's always been kind of what has been instilled to me is like, dude, if it's important to you, you'll make time. Like get up early and get it done. Like I said, my buddy Matt McGee, he's got a big family, and he's a good family man. He's a great dad. So he told me that's the only time he is able to train because he doesn't want to sacrifice time away from his family, over the training. So he's waking up at 3, 4, 5 a.m. to get it done. And then whatever else he gets done on shift or like I said, or before shift. And it just comes back to like that tribe, like I said, dude, instilling that mindset. Cause that's the other thing too, man, is, I just had a baby. She was born on December 17th, little baby girl, Avery. And, up before I had this baby, everybody's like, "Oh man, just wait till that baby's born, dude. You're not gonna work out. You're not gonna have time for anything." And like, not to brag, but like yesterday I got a workout in. It wasn't my normal, hour long grinder, but I got 30 minutes in because it's something that's important to me. And I also have a good support system too. Like my wife bought in, she supports me, and then I did everything I could to help her out. And it's just said, "Hey, look, I need to, for my own mental health, I need to, work out, just get a quick 30 minutes in." She was cool with it. She let me do it, but it's also my lifestyle. As you can see behind me, I'm in my garage. So I have a full garage gym too. So I knew that I wanted to have a family. That was one of the main motivators in me building the garage gym because I wanted to be able to just step out into my garage, get a quick 30-minute grinder in and come right back inside. And it's no different than if I had to go to the store. Most people live 10 to 15 minutes away from a store. You could easily get a workout done in that time. But it just drives me nuts, man. People get that crabs in a bucket mentality. They're always like, "Oh, just wait." And it's because they don't see the own greatness in themselves, and when they see other people are achieving things, they just have negative things to say, man. And I was always told, like, John Sparrow posted a bunch, don't ever like sweat the criticism from somebody you wouldn't go to for advice.
Oh yeah.
And that's that saying has just really helped me navigate my fire service career, man. Because you know how it is, dude. You get criticism from all angles. It's almost
Oh
like
yeah.
you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you sit in the recliner, you're a piece of shit. Oh, if you go out and train in the bay, oh, you're doing too much. So it's like, what do you really want to be criticized for? You want to be criticized for being a go-getter or for, being a slouch? So, and if it's coming from somebody you don't even care what their opinion is. It's like, why are you letting that bother you? And why are you letting them live rent-free in your head?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, your daughter's name is Avery. How do you spell it?
Avery.
Okay. So we're different. So my first daughter, my oldest, her name's Avery. So we talked about it before, but I didn't ask the name. So that's cool. We spell it
Awesome,
Averee. So,
I
and
like
that's
that
the
too.
same reason that I am also sitting in my garage, and I don't have a full garage gym, but I have enough to get stuff done. And like you said, if it's important to you, you'll make it done. And when your daughter gets older, and I've done it several times, even not, I mean, she's a newborn, right? Like put her in a little bouncer and while you get after it in the gym. That's been me several times before my wife started staying at home all the time. And, like you said, you can come out in your garage and get better for 10, 15, 20 minutes. I've done some really stressful workouts in 10 minutes before, and it's possible. And, I personally live by the 1% every single day. If I can get 5 minutes in, that's what I'm going to get in. And I built this garage gym for pennies on a dollar because I was just waiting and waiting and waiting until I could find the right deal. So, you can't tell me that you can't find it because I did it and I didn't put like a lot of time and effort into building it. Most of the stuff I got here was free and it's not perfect. So it's just something that's been important to me, that just like you were talking about with Matt, like I didn't want to take away from my family to go to the gym, right? Because it takes a long time to get in your car and get to the gym and then do your workout and everything. And a lot of times the garage will suffice to pop in that, 30-minute burner during nap time. So there's where there's a will, there's a way. And I think people like to feel sorry for themselves and they get lost in insecurities. And, that's something that I struggled with. So I'm speaking from experience. Like it's they say comparison is the thief of joy. And I could easily, and sometimes I do, I'm envious, right? Like look at guys like yourself and Spera and just several other, people out there that are just freaking banging it out in the gym, man, that are super fit. And I'm just like, I'm like, why am I even trying? But that's the whole point behind comparison is the thief of joy. You just gotta stay on your journey, which is huge, and not get discouraged because, the whole bro workout thing, I relate to that in a sense of like, you go in there for 1 week and it's like, my biceps aren't 22s yet. Like, why am I still trying for this? You know what I mean? So that part is huge. And I was going to say it at the end, but while we're here, congratulations. Being a dad is awesome, man. Like I said, we talked about it beforehand, but for me, I'll show some vulnerability here. I came to realize that I was a piece of crap before I had kids. Like my kids have gave me a purpose, and the trainings I go to and the working out that I do, like the support system from my wife has been phenomenal. And I could give a little piece of advice and say that it hasn't always been that way for me and my wife. I grew up, like we talked about, playing sports and quite literally 7 days a week going to the gym to do something. And that wasn't something that she understood at first until I had to sit her down and just have an honest conversation with her and just let her know, like, this is not something I do. This is who I am. And that was huge for me to tell her, because I don't look like I belong on the cover of a fitness magazine, but it is good for my mental health. I do that for my mental health. It's a way for me to relax. Some people have these other outlets. And for me, sometimes where I come to when I'm stressed is banging heavy weights and or nowadays running. I don't know who got me hooked on that, but it's dumb. And it's something that it requires time, and it does at some point require a little sacrifice, but you have to find a healthy balance in that. And that's something that you are about to happen, or you're about to find out is, and you already have the right idea, right? You have to give a little so that way you can take a little. And if that means taking care of the wife and baby all morning so you can get away and shoot a podcast, that's what it takes, right? Because this is the stuff that's important to you. when it comes to just doing hard things, I wanted to bring this up because that was for me, as we're shooting this podcast, it's December 21st. This is when we're shooting the podcast. At the beginning of this year, I made a challenge for myself to do hard things. And that didn't necessarily mean at work. That was in my personal life. And so 75 hard was one of those hard things. I started January 1st of last year. I had never ran more than a mile before January 1st of 2023. And running a half marathon was a hard thing for me. And I'm telling myself I had scheduled to go do a go ruck in September. And I made a dad choice. My daughter had her first soccer game, and I was like, I can't miss my daughter's first soccer game ever. So I canceled that. But having those goals in mind throughout those entire things really helped me. And not only that, but for me personally, I don't know, that's more or less why I'm asking, is I put money to it. I said, hey, I'm going to run this half marathon. And when I made that decision, I paid for it immediately. I said, hey, I'm going to do this go ruck, and I paid for it immediately. And it kind of gives yourself a little bit of buy-in to go into these, events. Is there, besides I guess not really the Georgia Smoke Divers and the Flames program, those are outside of work, but is that something that you do often, is to try and find these things that aren't necessarily associated with your department to go out and do to help on your, whether it be your, your mental resiliency or your physical resiliency?
Yeah. So actually, I think it was 2 years. I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. Same thing kind of happened. I'm not a runner, and I kind of like read Cameron Haynes' book, Endure, and he's a big trail runner in Oregon. And I was like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna sign up for a trail run. Let me see what's around me. And the closest one around me was about an hour from my house, and it was either a 25K or a 50K. And of course, I'm at the fire station while I'm looking at this, and this other guy, he's sitting next to me. I was working. I can't remember if I was working overtime or swap, but I was on a different shift. And my buddy Renato, he's also a Georgia Smoke diver. I was like, hey man, what do you think about? He's a runner too. I'm like, what do you think about this race, man? I'm thinking about just doing the 25K. I'm not really much of a runner, and it was only like I think 2 months away from when I was looking at it. Like it was 2 months out. And he's like, well, if you're going to drive an hour out of your way, you might as well just sign up for the whole race and do the 50K. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So I paid for it right there. And what a terrible idea that was.
So dumb. So dumb.
So yeah, so I had 8 weeks to train. And I think I never ran more than 10 miles in my life. Like at one time, and showed up at this 50K, and I got it done. It was like a terrible time. I think it was like 8 or 9 hours. I was like the last one to finish the race, but dude, I got a lot out of that just for myself personally, dude. Like just going and suffering, and it really is a gift, man. And I tell people this all the time, like at work and even outside of work, like nobody makes us do the things that we do. We get to do all these things. Like we get to live in this great country because there's a bunch of bad motherfuckers right now roaming the desert, killing terrorists, so that another 9/11 doesn't happen. We get to live in this great country and have freedom because of all the bad motherfuckers that stormed Normandy, and all that. Like, I think about that shit, dude, and I'm working out too. Like, I think about all the firemen who died on 9/11, dude, like the ultimate sacrifice. Like these things are way bigger than us. And I think the least we can do is endure a little bit of discomfort, and, it will make you better, man. And I've been a dad only for a few days, but I think our kids need to see that stuff, because as time goes on, society is getting softer and more fragile, and they're telling our kids, like, it's okay to be a loser. Everybody gets a trophy, Oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay. You don't have to be a winner, or, all this toxic masculinity bullshit. And it's like, that same toxic masculinity is what's keeping our country safe. And also, like, when I think about the job, like, same thing. I think about these dudes who serve, right? And they've either, they've either lost limbs, or they've passed away selflessly, serving our country, or they're actively serving. Their families are home while they're gone. And it's our job to protect their families while they're gone. They're protecting us so that we can live in this great country. The least we can do is show up prepared. God forbid if their family, needs us.
You're getting me fired up, dude. It's really hard to sit here and just listen to these things because that is something that I resonate with through and through. And I'll be honest with you. We talked about it. My oldest kid is a girl. She's my daughter, and then my second is a boy. And whenever I had my son, that is when all this stuff really started to hit me. And it's because I wish that I thought about this sooner. But the whole point of me trying to, at the beginning of this year, my son, he is 2 now. He will be 3. So he started to recognize stuff, if that makes sense. He's growing up. And the whole point of me saying, like, I had this conversation with my wife, like, I want to do hard things because I want to see, I want our kids to see me face adversity and continue on, to show that there is no quit in the game, and that regardless of setbacks and regardless of obstacles, that you can and will continue on. I personally am a person that does not agree with the whole trophy thing, the participation trophies. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. I've done even like, I'm 28 years old, or no, heck, I'm 29 years old now. And I just remember growing up and, realistically from football or baseball and going to a tournament and we got second place. And that trophy meant absolutely nothing to me. Absolutely. I still very much vividly remember the emotions that I had getting a second place trophy because I was pissed. I was pissed. I wanted to win. And I just do not see that drive in kids nowadays. And I want my children personally, and luckily the men that I'm surrounded by that have children all believe the same thing. And I know that when my kids are around them, they're around the same, mindset of whenever we face adversity, we continue on. We're not in this to lose. In my opinion, it's okay to have good sportsmanship, right? But it's not okay to just accept defeat and be like, well, they were better than us today. There's a time and place for it, sure, but I think that they need to be able to face, or they need to see adversity on a daily basis. And whenever we're handing out these, I don't know, I'm a baseball guy, and so I follow a lot of baseball, and it seems like every freaking tournament that these kids are playing nowadays, they're getting a ring because they won, and I'm just like, those rings aren't just for a weekend tournament down the road at the local, baseball fields. Those rings are for a bigger event like the World Series. And I just don't I don't agree with it. But
right.
Whenever do you know who Chad Wright is?
Dude, I love Chad Wright.
Chad Wright.
I love that guy's stuff.
He fires me up more than anyone else can. And he just speaks so much truth. And there was a video that he's talking about, and it made whatever you said made me think of it. He's talking about he's doing some type of race on a treadmill, right? And he's thinking of these men that he knows that have lost limbs, that they can't physically run anymore, and he's doing it for them, right? And just like you, I'm of the same mindset of, I personally believe that we owe the people that are serving our country, and I don't mean us. I don't mean us. The soldiers, the Marines, the seamen that are all serving our country, they deserve more than what we give. They deserve more than what we can give. And at the least, we can show up on possibly one of their worst days and do something well for them. I always try to show the most amount of gratitude to veterans on calls, regardless of their circumstances, because like you said, we are very privileged to live in the country that we live in because of men like them, and men and women like them. And they, a lot of the older guys, they say it's the best generation or whatever. And I think that we could learn a lot from them. And I wish that I knew more people from that generation to really talk to and just kind of get behind like how their mindset was. You know what I mean? Like, just, was it because of their raising, or just the time period they were in? The whole saying that tough times create tough men, tough men create good times create weak men. And I think currently we are on the whole weak men side of things, and it's up to guys like yourself and other people in this great world to continue to push the great men aspect of it. I don't know if all that makes sense, but that was something that it kind of got me fired up a little bit.
I remember even seeing a video recently. It was like whatever the I forgot what president it was. I can't remember. I think it was possibly JFK. He was saying that like he wanted the PE standard in schools to be high because he wanted to make like a generation essentially of hard people. I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but then the video changed from his speech to what they actually did in gym class. And dude, these guys were like, you know, doing calisthenics and were, you know, going across these like high monkey bars and doing like all kinds of crazy shit that there's no way kids in high school or middle school could do any of those things now. Yeah. And I think it just goes back to, you know, there was just a higher standard back then for physical toughness. And I think it does correlate because I think if you're, the more physically challenging things you do, the more mentally tough you're going to become. It's kind of like, you know, you harden the body with physical effort, but then you callous the mind.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so like doing those things where, like you said, you signed up for a half marathon, like to you, that's something that's hard. You're not a runner. I signed up for that 50K. I'm also not a runner. That was extremely hard for me. And I had to set my ego to the side when people were passing me. Mm-hmm. Like I'm serious. I was dead last in the race. There were dudes who you would think shouldn't have been beating me in the race that beat me, but I just, one, I wasn't a runner, and two, I didn't train as long as I needed to. But it was really just for me, it was I wanted to validate what I was currently doing. I wanted to see like, okay, with my training and my physical fitness right now, in 8 weeks, with minimal real training other than just basically maintaining what I'm doing and adding a few extra runs in, can I go out and complete a 50K race? You know, it's like 32 miles. And I was. So it's like, okay, you know, that should say something. Like, and that's kind of my motto now is my training. I should be like, I try to keep myself 8 weeks within any type of event I could possibly want to do. Like, you should have enough physical fitness eventually to where whatever you want to do physically, if you just train for 8 weeks, and maybe, you know, like maybe it's just a skill thing. Like, let's say you want to go cross country skiing somewhere or something. Like, you just got to work on the skills, or you want to go do a hike and you just got to do more hiking leading up to it. But you're already physically fit. You just have to dial it in.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's just my standard for myself.
Just because I was telling a friend that I was, you know, doing a podcast with you, and I was kind of explaining who you were, and he's not a very fit person, but he was very curious. And so it kind of made me think, what advice would you give to someone that is just unsure of anything physical wise? Like, and to be specific, this person he's a normal person. He could probably accomplish most normal tasks, but aside from real physical fitness, he doesn't have any. And he would say that on here. What advice would you give just to get someone started?
Like, as far as just getting started, like in physical fitness in general?
Yeah. And more specifically from what he was wanting to know would be physical fitness as it pertains to our job.
Okay. So another like saying that was kind of instilled into me is like one day or day one, right? So a lot of people are always like, oh, I'll start that one day, or oh, I'll start on Monday, right? And I think it just takes you like having an honest look at yourself, look in the mirror and say, you know what? Today is day one, right? And then as far as for our job, man, I preach this all the time. I think I've said it on every, you know, interview that I've been on is you just have to get in gear, man. Gear, I swear, is the almighty equalizer. Like you could have been a high level like CrossFit athlete, right? Like, you know, could have went to the games or you know, you just compete high level. But when we put the gear on you, it's going to significantly change how you feel and how you perform. So now we're looking at somebody that, you know, I would consider is like a high level, you know, of physical fitness. And now you're putting gear on them and it's diminishing their performance. What do you think it does to people who are just like average or below average fitness, right? And I would just tell him like, hey man, if you're just at the station, dude, just put your coat and pants on and do like a 20-minute, what I would consider like a fire ground circuit. So, like sledge hits, possibly tire flips if you don't have like a bad back or, you have good form, climb some stairs, maybe some body weight movements, do some search crawls and dummy drags, and, just set a timer for 20 minutes and go. Or a lot of times what I'll do with my crew, since we're all different fitness levels, is I'll do like stations that are timed. So it'll be all those same stations I just listed, right? But I'll say, all right, we're going to go for, 3 minutes of work. Once the 3 minutes is up, we're going to rotate, clockwise. Then you keep going and we're going to go through this rotation, 2 or 3 times or whatever I decide. I try to hit anywhere between 20 and 45 minutes of work, right? And what's nice about the time stations is you stay at that station until the time's up. So you don't have to worry about somebody like overlapping you. If you have enough sledgehammers or enough tires to flip, you just stay there until the time's up, and then we all rotate at the same time. And what's also nice about that is, like, let's say you're a stud, right? So you go as hard as you want because you're a stud. The other guy who's maybe not as like high level fitness, he just goes at his or her pace, and nobody's watching you. Like everybody's suffering in their own little bubble. Like nobody's looking at what the other person's doing because they're just worried about, fuck man, I just want this time to end so I can move on to something else.
Yeah.
But my big thing I tell people is either coat and pants or even just start out in your coat, because the problem is like going back to like the CrossFit thing or, the guys who only do the bro workouts. You're typically in an air conditioned gym in your PT clothes, right? And, you work in Texas, I work in Florida. 90% of the year, it's hot as balls out. So when you put that gear on, it's already elevating your heart rate to at least probably 140, 150. Then you start doing some work, and I can guarantee, I don't care how good a shape you're in, your heart rate's going to elevate to 180 because you're not able to dump that heat. And I was doing research online. They actually say that the way the human body dumps its heat is through the hands and the feet. Well, those are encapsulated by your gloves and your fire boots. And then also, like, some people think you dump it from your head, which you might a little bit. Well, now you have a hood and a helmet on. So now we're in 100-degree plus weather, and you're completely encapsulated in your gear. And now you're expected to go do work, right? And if you're already not in shape, that's going to cripple you. Because we've already established that when you are in shape, it already diminishes your performance. So that's just my 2 cents. Even if that person just goes out for 10 or 15 minutes in the middle of summer in their coat and pants, they do what they can. And then maybe they just strip down and they finish the circuit so they get at least 30 minutes of work. And then each week, start accumulating higher, because the body does acclimate. The human body, dude, is an amazing machine, man. It will go forever. It's our minds that we have to callous. Yeah. So the body will acclimate.
So I guess that kind of brings me into the next thing, because what I told him was like, well, this guy I'm talking to, he has his own training program. So let's talk about that, man. How did you develop this training program that you have?
So when I first developed the program, I initially wanted to do like fitness coaching. I've had a fitness coach myself for over 5 years because I'm the type of person, like, if somebody writes me a workout, I'll do it. I don't have to think about it. And it's just like, it's just one less thing I have to worry about. I just log into my app and I look at the workout for the day and I just get it done. There's no time wasted trying to figure out what I want to do. Or what happens is a lot of people, they get in their comfort zone and they just always do the stuff they're good at, right?
Right, yeah.
So I've had this coach for over 5 years. His name's Brett Eddy. And finally, I'd always wanted to do fitness coaching, but I just kind of never had the confidence or just didn't think I'd like be good at it. But I finally this year, I said, F it. I'm going to do the same certification course that he did and, be able to work at his gym with him. And so I finished that. And I initially wanted to do like one-on-one personal coaching. So like essentially kind of what I did with him over the 5 years, I came to him with my goals and he would develop a personal program to me based on the equipment I had and my fitness level. And then they would ramp up, over time and push me. But, that tends to be a little pricier. And I understand that, firemen are usually on a fixed budget. So to kind of just get started and even see if people would even be interested in this type of training, I developed a 12-week program called the Rogue Operator because I started a business called Rogue Firemanship, consulting and training. And, because I also want to do hands-on training as well through the company. But so yeah, it's called the Rogue Operator, and it's 12 weeks, and it's 2 to 3 lifting workouts, but it's more like volume, kind of how I train. And then it's a day of active recovery, and then 2 to 3 gear workouts a week. And I've had quite a few people sign up. I think I dropped it like 6 weeks ago. I've had 55 people sign up, which has been super humbling because I thought maybe like 5 or 10 of my friends will sign up because they feel bad for me.
Yeah.
But I've had people all over sign up. I have a guy right now who's doing it, and he's in Canada.
Wow.
So it's been super humbling, man. I've been getting pretty good feedback. And so what I think I'm going to do now, because obviously the 12 weeks only takes you so far. So I've been, working on another program that I'm probably going to drop at the beginning of the year. And it's going to be the same app that I'm using, because that's the other thing too. The app that I use, it sends you all your workouts every day, and you're able to there's videos that accompany everything. So if you're not sure what something is, you look at the video, and if you really don't know still, you're able to message me through the app, and it, pops up a notification on my phone. And I try to be really good about replying, as quickly as I can. Obviously I'm a new dad now, so I'm not as quick as I used to be, but I think it's nice because people are able to get feedback. And so this next program I'm going to drop, it's going to be a monthly program where you just pay, I think I'm going to probably put it at like $20 a month to make it affordable. That's probably what your Netflix subscription is now. I think they keep jacking that up. So,
yeah.
Make it affordable, and then it'll be a monthly subscription, but I'll drop, new workouts every week. And I'm going to format it so that it's like, it'll be like training cycles throughout the year. So it'll be like, the first, whenever you sign up, you'll be in the middle of a training cycle. And then it'll be like, okay, we're focusing on rucking these next 3 months. So it'll be like a lot of rucking workouts that focus around that. We're this next 3 months, we're really going to focus on getting our squats good, or we're going to focus on, there's always going to be gear workouts in it, but there'll always be some sort of like aspect as far as like a training cycle to get something better. And so I think I'm going to go that route. But yeah, if they want to sign up for the 12-week program, it's a one-time payment of $50. And that gives you, 12 weeks of training, which, that's like $16 a month. If you really think about it, I think it comes out to like less than $1 a day for a workout.
So what, you said it's it's based off a 7-day week, right?
There's one rest day. So it's really 6 workouts a week.
Okay. So 6 workouts a week, three workouts in gear. And what were the other 3 days? What did you say?
So it'll be 3 workouts in gear, 3 workouts basically that you can get done in the gym. It'll be, lifting or some sort of like circuit just in PT clothes. And then one active recovery day. And it's like the first half of the cycle is running. The second half is rucking. And I essentially designed it to how I train. So it's very scalable, but I scaled it on the higher end. That way, if some of my buddies who are smoke divers or at a high level of fitness, they'll be challenged. But if you're not at that level, you would just scale it back. Like I have weighted pull-ups in there every week. Obviously, if you can't do weighted pull-ups, you would do them unweighted. And if you're not able to do unweighted pull-ups, you can do banded pull-ups. And if you can't do banded pull-ups, then you could do like inverted rows. Like they're able to message me in the app, and I can give them any suggestion if they don't have something or if they need to adjust it. And it'll be the same way in the monthly subscription that I'm about to drop as well.
Perfect. That's awesome, man.
I just felt like there wasn't a lot out there that really like pertained to, firemen. And there is stuff out there that like they say it helps like, first responders, or like, the big buzzword is like tactical athlete, right? But you would buy the program, or you would look at the program, and there was literally nothing in gear. It was all stuff outside of gear. And that's all great. Like I do it all, I do workouts in gear, I do workouts out of gear. You got to have balance. Basically have to be a hybrid athlete. But when you're not in gear at all, I think it's just a huge disadvantage, because that's where we operate in. And you have to be able to operate in what I call the red, which is when your heart rate's 170, 180, because there's no way to keep it down when you're in your gear.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've done some gear workouts where you finish the workout, right? And you got your heartbeat in your ears, you're hurting bad. And let's say maybe you take a few minutes that you don't want to take your gear off, and your heart rate's still high even after a few minutes of just sitting in your gear.
Yeah, I've done a few gear workouts over this last year, and that is something that is on my to-do list for this next year as far as my personal goals go, is to really get in gear more often. And I, like you said, I do agree, because I've done some pretty grueling work. Like, I say that I've done some really simple workouts in gear that have actually kicked my butt, and I'm just like, God, it's a humbling experience once you throw that gear on. Something as simple as doing stairs, with an air pack on and breathing air,
Yeah.
that'll kick your butt whenever you wouldn't really be that way if you weren't in gear. And I think the more that people get into that realm of working out with gear on, like, it's kind of a foreign concept around these parts. Like, I've seen guys in gear working out, but it's all guys that are plugged in and probably follow guys like you and Fit to Fight Fire and everything, or they have, the smoke divers on their agenda, that they know this. But everyone else, it's kind of like they're not talking negatively about it, but it's kind of like, what are you guys doing? It's a more curious mind than anything. But you don't see guys in gear often, working out. I can speak personally for my department. There's not a lot of gear workouts happening, but I think it's something that people like yourself and Fit to Fight Fire and a couple of those other accounts that are putting out workouts in gear, that it's slowly changing. And I like it because, like you said, I personally on a fire ground, I want to be able to do everything that I can. Like, they say, fires are down and everything. Well, if fires are down and we only get, and I'm not saying that this is how many we get, but if there's only 5 fires a year that I get, I want to do absolutely every single thing that I can on those 5 fires. And I know one thing is going to make the difference in that. And that is, your physical fitness and the ability to operate in gear for an extended amount of time. And there's only one way to do it, and that's to get in gear. I love that. I'm actually going to write that down. It's the equalizer. Working out in your gear is the equalizer. I love that. Is there anything else on the horizon for you besides this new training program you have that you're going to drop at the beginning of the year?
As of right now, that's pretty much it. I actually suffered a pretty decent back injury. I currently have a herniated disc at L5S1, so that's been put a pretty big hindrance on, my training. I'm going through physical therapy right now, and I'm doing what I can, little stuff here and there. I was supposed to go back to Florida Smoke Diver the first week of January, but I decided to pull the plug on that. Just really focus, one, on family, and two, getting my back better. And I honestly think it's a blessing in disguise, because when my wife and I had initially discussed it, when we first found out we were pregnant, she knew I was still training for, to go back to Florida. And, the way they do it now is you have to try out to get into the class. So they hold the tryout, in August, and the class is in January. So you pretty much have to know way ahead of time if you're going to commit, right? So I talked to her, and she's like, no, I'd rather you get it done now, because it could be way easier to get it done while she's a newborn, and, it's only 1 week away, and our whole family lives in the neighborhood, so she would have help. But I think it's a blessing in disguise now, because it's like more motivation now that she's actually born. Like, once I fully get healed up, knowing that she's going to be there now when I go back. Mm-hmm. And It's really kind of come full circle, because I always preach to people. Like, I teach recruits, I teach at the, truck class, by my house. And, I think the ultimate standard you should hold yourself to is you should want you or somebody like you coming to rescue your own family if you're trapped. And dude, just seeing my family born, or seeing my, baby girl born, just, it like lights a fire in my ass, man, just to be even that much better. And because it really just brings it full circle when you're talking about your own children. And, that brings me to
definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was saying, it adds a different aspect to everything that you do on our job when it comes to training. I'll name drop him. He was on the last podcast, or not the last one, but the relaunch episode we did. Josh Mosley. He is the best person that I know to throw in there for this scenario. Is any training he does, and it does not matter what it is. It could be mask up drills. In his mind, he is envisioning that it is his house on fire and it is his children and wife inside. And I don't say that just to throw the point out there. I mean, that is literally his mindset. I've talked to him at links for it, and he's so good at it. He's good at, like, that is something that I lack at, is being able to really just envision that and really hold myself to that. And that is something that he does well. And he has children, and I do believe that, like, even though I believe you could do that without children, but with children, like, man, that just, what that's like. That it is a very real thing, and it is something that you can put a face with, and you could put, sometimes as dark as it is, as sometimes it's a little bit of an intrusive thought, if you will, but you can put a name, you can put a face, you can put a voice with that in your head to be able to amplify your training.
100%. And that's brings me to my next point too, talking about, him being on the relaunch episode where they made all those grabs. It was crazy, man. When I was listening to that episode and they were talking about the actual search techniques that they were doing, it's all stuff that I have learned as well, and that was passed on to me. And I'm just one fireman in a small department in Central Florida, and y'all are all the way in Texas. But because we've gone to outside classes and we're going outside our department and kind of learning what the new next best practices are, we're actually like all on the same page. Like when you guys were talking, when they were talking about the things they were doing and how they operated, it was like, man, that's all stuff that I've practiced and that I've done, or that I've like talked about with my crew. And it's like, when I first started going to outside classes and conferences, I got chastised for it. I don't know why. I don't know what the deal was, but I've had lieutenants, I've had battalion chiefs like make fun of me and like, oh, why are you going to those? Like, oh, you don't know how to be a fireman, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, we don't go to a lot of fires, and we're kind of losing that mentorship side of things. We don't really have as many senior men anymore. They're all kind of leaving, and like, I'm sure your department's the same way, but we're kind of, in my department, we're kind of in that weird gap where we only have like a handful of guys that have like 20 plus years, and the rest are all like 10 and under. And we're talking about a generation of firemen that didn't go to as many fires as those 20 plus year guys. And so I'm big, man. I'm big on go outside your department and just hear what other people have to say. Listen, even if you just listen to their experiences, you kind of can learn from their experiences and some of the mistakes they made or lessons learned. And it almost ends up being like a Rolodex in your mind when you're stuck in similar situations. You're like, okay, I've never done this or seen it, but I heard somebody talk about it. This is what they did. This is what worked for them, what didn't. And you can kind of adapt to the situation, but you have to train at a high level to be able to do that and to be able to think in a high stress environment, right? So that's why I'm huge on reps. Like, you should be able, my big thing, that's why physical fitness is important to me and reps is important to me, because when I'm in a critical incident, I don't want to have to think about how I have to put my mask on. And I don't want to have to be so out of breath from getting my gear on because I'm so out of shape that I can't actually see and comprehend like what's going on and intelligently make, sound decisions. So it's like when I step off the truck, I condition myself to calmly and collectively, but move in a fast pace. Some people call it a run. I just call it, that's whatever your fire ground pace is, right? Like, I believe in running on the fire ground, but only if you train that. Like, you're never going to rise to your expectations. You're always going to fall to the level of your training. So, and then, being able to mask up in 30 seconds or less, being able to mask up while holding a tool and not yard sailing a shit on the ground, and also being able to look at what's going on in front of you, right, before you make entry. And, being able to do a quick 360 and get an actual good picture of what's going on. It all ties in, man. And I wish more people had that mindset. But if you think about it, dude, like, you look at some of the highest level operators in the world, right? You look at Green Berets, Delta Force, Navy SEALs, Rangers. They all train so that everything is muscle memory, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. And also, on top of all the training they do a shit ton of recon for the mission they're about to complete. Like, they know everything about the target they're about to either capture or kill. They know what he had for freaking breakfast that morning. We don't get that luxury. We go from being sound asleep in our beds, counting sheep, to, the bell rings and it's multiple callers for a confirmed structure fire with multiple entrapments. And Maybe if you're lucky, it was a frequent flyer that you've been there before on a medical, but chances are maybe you not, or you didn't pay attention because you have the mindset of, oh, this is a medical, I fucking hate medical, or whatever the case may be. So like, why wouldn't you at least train the things that you have control over, which is your fitness and your skills, and getting the skills so that they're muscle memory, so you don't have to think about what you're doing, and that's the other thing too, man. It's like, I have to ride up. I'm on a lieutenant's list, so it's very possible I may be becoming, a real officer. And the department's getting younger and younger. So not only do I have to worry about what I'm doing and what my decisions are going to be, I might have a pumpkin head in the back seat that I got to tell every little thing to, because they teach the minimum standard here in Florida, and they teach them how to be robots. So now we're on a real scene. I have to tell them every little thing to do. So now that makes the job a lot harder. It's like, why wouldn't you want yourself dialed in? So that way you can get everything else you need to be done and still be able to tell your new guy, like, hey, man, pull the pre-connect to the front door. Make sure you take the coupling, the first 50-foot coupling with the nozzle to the front door. I'll meet you there. And it drives me nuts, man, when people act like they haven't been there before too, man. Like, our job is to bring peace to the chaos, not more chaos to the chaos. If you start yelling and screaming at your guys or yelling on the radio, it's just showing everybody that you're not in control. Like, I don't care how stressful it is, man. Like, we are paid professionals. We need to show up and act like we've been there, even though maybe we haven't been there. Like, if I show up, whenever I go back to work and I get toned out for a structure fire with confirmed entrapment, I've never had that yet. I'm going to be flat out. I've never made a grab. I've never, been toned out to a structure fire where they're saying immediately, hey, confirmed entrapment, all that, stuff that would be considered high stress. But I can damn well guarantee, at least when I get on the radio, I'm going to have self-control, sound calm, give precise, communication and commands, and go to work.
Oh, yeah.
And it comes down to
huge. It's huge.
Reps and years of building upon that, and learning from other people. Like, if I tell you, dude, even me, I'm nobody, right? I've got 10 years on the job. I still think I'm new, but, I feel like I'm pretty good at the job. Like, I think I could perform at a high level. But if I tell you, hey, John, I know everything there is about this job. You don't need to fucking listen to anybody else. Like, I got it, bro. I'm going to tell you everything you know about this job. Like, that's bullshit, dude. There's not one person that can tell you how to be good at anything, dude. That's anything in life, bro. Parenting, being a good runner, whatever it is, man, finances. Like, dude, if one person tells you, hey, you don't need to go to anybody else, like, that's a red flag. And it drives me nuts that we have leadership in the fire service that will tell people that. Like, I don't know, man. That's just one of my pet peeves.
No, I love it because I've had this conversation a lot, and it's the same thing outside classes and all that. And the best way that I know how to explain it, and I don't want to take away from anyone's experience, but I work at a department where I feel like it's probably somewhere around the 80 mark range of fires we respond to yearly. So somewhere around in the 300s, right? That's about the one of our most senior guys. He's been to about 300 something structure fires, and I might be mistaken, but it's somewhere around that range, right? And I don't want to take anything away from his experience, and he could probably teach me everything there is to know. But why would I want to limit myself to his 300 fires when I can go talk to some FDNY guy, some Houston guy that responds to 3,000 over a freaking 30-year career? You know what I mean? Like, that there's a huge gap there, and there's a lot of experience that we can learn from in that, and through mentorship and taking outside classes and listening to those guys, right? And that's why, like, I also am really big on reps and doing the fireground task and getting really good at it and practicing the things that other guys have been to classes and bringing back things from classes that I have learned. And it's because just like on the last podcast, man, like I was there, but I was not a part of the incident. I was on an ambulance, unfortunately. And as much as I wish I was there, but like, I know for a fact that whenever I am, and if I am ever put in that position, that first of all, everything that they have taught me prior, everything I've learned at these classes and everything those guys went through, they are going to be with me. And as you can tell, that is transferable experience. If that solution or that situation wasn't proof of it enough for me, then there won't be anything. These guys, took this class 5 years ago, and an incident at 4 o'clock in the morning that the stakes are high and their mind's going a million miles an hour. They're able to recall things that they learned on a class, wherever it was, Denver or Portland. And they were able to remember that when everything else was going on, all the way down to our apprentice who has been on the job, less than a year or about a year now, that everything he's learned, right, he was able to recall those things at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, what we're doing matters, and the stuff that we're learning at conferences matter. And thank God we have people like the Brothers in Battle cadre. And I mean, I could list all of them, but that's the one that sticks out in my head, to be able to teach us these things and be able to, through the whole shared experience. That's why, me personally, I'm huge on shared experiences, because I have this whole thing where I personally believe in a mindset of proactiveness rather than reactiveness. And I'm sorry, but the best way I know how to relate to this is on an ambulance. We run ambulances at my department, and I couldn't tell you how many times that I've walked into the hospital and like, sorry, doc, I have no freaking clue what's going on here. And he'll rattle it off. Like, oh, this is obviously this, and this, and this. Like, okay, cool. And by the time I get in the ambulance, once I get in the ambulance, I'm looking it up, right? And that's reactive. You know what I mean? Like, now I know, right? Now I know, like, oh, hey, if this person has this, this, and this, that's probably what it is. And what I personally have tried to do, and what I've tried to instill in some of the guys that have came up underneath me, is do that, but on the fire side. Learn everything you can about building construction, about fire behavior. Control the controllable, right? And what's controllable is what you know. And I don't know who said it, but I'll steal it, right? Like, we are in a fire service where it is almost negligible to be ignorant to the stuff that everyone has access to now through Cal Romagus and the Bro Drive, right? That mecca of a hard drive alone is almost everything you need to know, at least for a solid, 5-10 years, with all the information that's in there. But then once we know this stuff, we have a responsibility to pass it on. And that's what I personally, and that's what I really, really enjoy about having conversations with guys like yourself, and just hearing that other people are in the same situations we are, and knowing that they're doing similar things to what we are, and knowing that it's just a form of validation, in my opinion, that like going to these classes matter. And, I haven't received the validation in a physical sense of, a call, more or less, like the guys did from our last podcast. But I know that when that day comes, that I'll be ready, and I will be proactive and continue to be proactive and continue to learn everything that I can about anything that I can realistically. Today it's fitness, you know what I mean? Tomorrow it might be leadership. The next day it might be engine work. And, I won't say anything about truck work. I'm sure crayons taste good, but anyways, man, it's just a ever evolving thing. And I want to talk to as many people as I can. And I know that stuff isn't black and white in the fire service, and there's a time and place for every scenario, but I want to eliminate most of that stuff. I want things to be almost black and white for me. If this, then this, because once we eliminate those things, it's just like prioritize and execute. And, I was reading a book, or I think it was a book that you mentioned the exact same thing. All these high level operators, they train the fundamentals over and over and over and over again, right? So whenever it's go time, the last thing they're thinking of is chambering around, right? The last thing they're thinking of is where they're going to set their charge on the door to do it, or to blow the door. And that's what we should cultivate in the fire service, right? We should have these fundamentals down and know how to deploy your hose load that you run at your fire department. You should know how to force a door. You should know how to cut a hole. That way, when a curveball is thrown, right, it's not taken by surprise. And I think the more, I personally do believe, like, that kind of sounds like negative that we don't, but I personally believe that we are moving in the right direction as a fire service. It's pretty obvious. Like, it's just growing, and through these conferences and through classes and through podcasts, right? Like, I'm a nobody from nowhere, and I get to talk to some cool people, and have talked to some cool people, and hopefully we'll continue to talk to some cool people. And right, and selfishly, like, I love it, because I'm making connections with people that otherwise I would probably never have the opportunity to connect with. And I'm getting to learn stuff that I might not ever have the opportunity to learn. And so I'm thankful for guys like yourself, and I could name everybody that I'm thankful for, but I think that the main thing is we a lot of times we tend to focus on what we're not, and we really need to rein in on what we are. And what we are is there are several badass dudes that work for the American Fire Service, and they're everywhere from big cities to small towns to volunteer departments. They're everywhere. Some of the best firemen I know work for volunteer fire departments. And, I might get chastised for saying that, but it's the truth. Whenever you're not getting paid for something, you tend to have a lot more commitment to it, right? That's why I'm so against college football players getting paid, but that's a different story. Anyways, man, that's awesome. So I have one more question, and unless you have anything else to add, man, I think I'm good. One more question. So
Awesome.
If someone, and I might be asking for a friend, wanted to grow a mustache as nice as yours, what advice would you give them?
Just gotta let it grow, man.
Just gotta let it grow.
I've had this thing almost 6 years. Gotta let it grow.
I was talking to a driver at my department, and he has just a manly mustache. It's also very nice. And he gave me a piece of advice that I've taken. And it's, what do you do when you want your grass to grow? You got to water it. So he's like, get you some oil or something, put it on there. I'm putting that stuff on there daily. Oh, man. So, awesome. Logan, man, I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a new dad and you got a baby inside. I don't want to take any more of your time. I really appreciate you doing this. Your passion speaks for itself. You have been a motivation and an influence on my life before this moment, just seeing your workouts, and I've stolen some, and just seeing the commitment and passion that you have for the physical fitness side specifically. And I really appreciate you doing this. If people wanted to get a hold of you, if they want information on the training program, if they just wanted to talk, get some information about Georgia Smoke Divers or the Flames program, and what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so they can reach me on either Facebook or Instagram is predominantly what I'm on. So my Facebook, it's just Logan Gunner Broberg, my full name. And then on Instagram, it's my full name, Logan Broberg Fit. And then my training page is Rogue Firemanship Training. And they can message me on any of those platforms, and I can get them in the right direction, man. I'm willing to help anybody has any questions, because people have helped me along the way. And like I said, nothing I came up with is original. It's just stuff that was passed on to me, and now I'm trying to share it with others.
That's awesome, man. Well, once again, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, thank you. That will be it for today's Tailboard Misfits podcast. We have some pretty exciting news coming up, so stay tuned. Get plugged into our Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. This will be where all of our podcasts, whether they be Zoom or in person, will be posted. Once again, thank you.